All right, welcome to our first session in our Bible study based on the book of Genesis. The introduction of Genesis is filled with profound significance. God made the universe out of nothing. This is in direct contrast to the sense of both the ancients and modern cosmology that assumed that the universe was eternal. Scientific discoveries have, in the last 100 years, verified that creation out of nothing is actually what has taken place. The other discovery that has confirmed Genesis is the profound fine tuning required at the beginning of the universe in order for it to have developed the way that it has and to support life, particularly intelligent life. If you're interested in researching this further, I suggest the recently released book, Return of the God Hypothesis by Stephen Meyer. All right, let's look at the text itself. Genesis 1, 1 and 2. The theological significance of these verses is that they affirm the universe was made ex nihilo, or out of nothing, by God. It also introduced the concept of the land. The word earth here is more commonly translated land, and this becomes a major theme in the Pentateuch and the rest of Scripture. This also emphasizes that creation is designed for and is a home for human beings. Words formless and void set the stage for the rest of the creation account, where God will first form and then fill the creation. At the same time, these verses argue against the gods. The sun, moon, and stars were all worshipped, as were various animals. The Genesis account places other animals, and indeed even the planets and stars, beneath us in the created order. In other words, or in the words of Assisi, nature is not our mother, but our sister, our little sister, in fact. He meant this in the sense that we were to watch out for her and have been told to care for her. Ironically, the environmental movement has some basis in the Christian tradition and provides a better foundation to speak for creation than the atheistic evolutionist worldview that most environmentalists hold to. The very first forming act of creation that God does is to separate darkness and light. It is also the first time that God declares something, the light, good. In Hebrew, good is a short three-letter word, tov, as in mazel tov. But its significance is almost beyond measure. We see two things about the good here. First, God is the one who makes it, sees it, and determines it. Second, and this will become more obvious as we read on, it is good in relation to human beings. It is good because it is beneficial to us. Creation's purpose is for God's glory, but that is realized through humanity. On the second day, the waters above and below are separated, and the water and sky are formed. This is the only day that is not determined to be good. Why? Because it is not formed for humanity. The forming of the land is a dramatic moment in creation account, as it will be suitable for humanity. On this day, God does something special in creating plant life. The significance of this is twofold. One, it will provide the basic food source for humans, and second, it represents a hybrid. It is part of the forming of the world, like the rocks, seas, stars, etc., but it is also something new in that it is living. This will parallel the sixth day, when God will introduce another special hybrid. In the first 3 days, the world is formed. This is the structure alluded to in verse 2. Creation is called formless and void. In the next 3 days, we will see that what has been formed will now be filled. Therefore, what was formed on day 1, light and darkness, will now be filled. Sun for the day, and the moon and the stars for the night. While the term heavens and earth must assume that sun, moon, and stars were already created, the following verses show that they were somehow differentiated on the fourth day, and their purpose is also clarified. Radically different from the scientific worldview, We see in this passage that God made the heavens for us. Their significance comes in their providing seasons, marking off the passage of time, etc. This is why they are good. On the fifth day, we have only the second time the word create being used. This marks off a significant new act of creating living things. Also, for this first time, the word blessing is used, and this word is connected with and sounds like created. We see here in day 6 that human beings are singled out as the end or purpose of creation. They are special in all of creation. Just as on the third day, in addition to making land, God made this special hybrid thing that was part of forming the earth, but also alive. On the sixth day, along with the rest of the land animals, God made human beings. They were hybrid in the sense of being creatures, but also made in the image of God. The language is more personal. For the first and only time, we read, "Let us make humans in our image." As for the first and only time, male and female are mentioned, and this is associated with us being in his image. Human beings are to rule over creation. We complete creation because we alone can return praise to God. All of creation reveals something of God, but only humans bear his image. It is only after human beings are created that creation is declared very good. On the seventh day, God does not say anything, nor does he do anything. He rests. Since we are made in his image, we should also rest. This is true of a weekly Sabbath from injustice, but it is also true that we should rest from injustice and oppression, as in the Exodus. Also, as we should rest in the end of our days, i.e., well done, my good and faithful servant, enter into your rest. And ultimately, in the day of the Lord. Even in the very first verse of Genesis, when God says, "In the beginning," there's a hint of this as the phrase is used in the context of something like a year, where the very beginning has implied within it a sense that it will also have an end. This is reflected in our language by the phrase so often used in English, "once upon a time," where we know that a story is about to be told and that very often ended with, "and they lived happily ever after." These formats echoed the biblical story, and you'll notice that later authors talk about end times, they will connect it with creation. And the most obvious example being, "and there was a new heaven and a new earth." What follows after this prologue is the story of redemption, first highlighted by the Exodus, then by the possessing of the land and the rise of the kings, the exile and return, and ultimately the coming of Christ, who we are told in the beginning was the Word, and he was with God, and the Word was God. That's kind of an overview of our first Bible study. We look forward to seeing many of you joining us for our virtual discussion.